2, 1. Welcome to hour 2 of the All Ball Podcast. We are back, so let's jump right into it. Brian Flores was hired by the Pittsburgh Steelers to be a defensive coach and an assistant head coach to Mike Tomlin. Kind of surprised he actually got a job so fast. Usually when you're suing a place, they're not going to hire you to a job. But good on the Steelers. I think he deserves a job, definitely. So good on the Steelers and Mike Tomlin. Props to them.
It's definitely a good fit. Both defensive mindsets, but it sucks for him, and why I don't know if it's really going to last very long. And maybe he doesn't want it to. Maybe he only wants it a year or so till he sees a better coaching position, like head coaching position.
Right.
But the big thing was like a power struggle in Miami, and you best believe he's not getting the defensive ropes over Tomlin in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
So I don't know how well. I mean, it's possible that those two mesh well and can come up with some really crazy defensive schemes to get like T.J. Watt, 30 sacks next year. That might be the goal. But it's like, to me, I definitely think that. Well, you could look at it in one of two ways. You could look at it from Brian Flores' standpoint, where it's possible he just went to like a surefire defensive team where he's going to get nods at a head coaching position later on, just because they're obviously going to be good next year, probably the year after that. Pittsburgh always is, especially under Tomlin. They have been. But then I think he would have got looked at a little bit higher, though, if he went to a team that kind of was lacking on defense this year and improved them next year. But maybe he just wanted to play it safe and at least get paid. Maybe
this was his only offer. Like I said, when you're suing an organization or a company, generally they don't hire you. So,
well, that's true. But Pittsburgh's been they've been probably the best in the league, maybe besides New England, about keeping the chaos behind closed doors and not letting that come out to the media. And they're pretty good at handling their professional business behind closed doors.
right.
Just Pittsburgh.
Yeah. Right. You're right. So yeah, I think that's a good thing. I think it's probably a good fit. I mean, Mike Tomlin, ultimate professional, Pittsburgh, one of the great franchises in sports, not only the NFL. So yeah, I think it works out. Next story. So the NFL scouting combine begins next week in Indianapolis. A group of player agents are threatening to organize a boycott of key elements of the combine over its concerns about a COVID-19 bubble for prospects. So the bubble would keep prospects from interacting with their personal trainers, doctors, nutritionists, and agents on Indianapolis. I just don't see how this is at all necessary.
No,
How is this necessary at all?
Dude, you look at the last two combines, and yes, to be fair, a lot of people didn't attend the combines specifically for, COVID, whatever. But it hasn't been an issue, before, right? And I don't know. It's pretty unnecessary, I think, especially when you look at it like this. It's probably easier to put the combine in a bubble. It's easier to isolate that specific deal, right? But they weren't doing that for playoff games. And let's say a player gets
so unnecessary.
Let's say a player gets sick the day before a playoff game, they're not going to be playing. Who gives a rip if you get sick at the combine? You got 4 months to, before the season starts.
Literally just so unnecessary. These guys are all like 22. COVID is not an issue for them. Likely majority of them are vaccinated. Like I said, they're all like 22. COVID is no longer an issue for this demographic. This is not a problem. And like you said, if they get COVID, so what? They're going to be fine. And then they
I
just
know.
don't go. So what?
But that's the whole thing. It's like, so I don't know specifically how they normally set this up, but I guarantee you they're not sticking them all in the same hotel floor, all the prospects
Boom.
coming in, right? And so they're going to be coming at their own time or their own scheduled time anyway. And so the contact really isn't going to be very high.
They act like they're not with their trainers and staff already.
Right. And especially when you look at it, they're not going with their trainers. They're not allowed to be in contact with their trainers. No. That makes... I wouldn't even go to the combine at that point.
No, because how, if you don't have your trainers or your doctors or nutrition, whatever, you might not even be in peak condition.
Exactly. And so you're going to lose money off of this. You're going to lose money off of this.
Most of the stuff about the combine is talking to teams, right? They do interviews with teams and stuff. How do you not go to that with your agent? That'd be like going to court without your lawyer. Doesn't make any sense.
I don't know what the NFL is doing with that. It's just like, I don't know. It's possible that maybe it's just like a test run, like for something they got up their sleeve for next year. But you look at it like COVID really wasn't an issue this year in the NFL, like just the regular season and the playoffs.
No, it really wasn't. That's because they adjusted their guidelines for it because they realized that like making players sit out for 2 weeks wasn't necessary anymore. It's as the conditions on the ground have changed, our reaction to those conditions should also change. 2 years ago, fine, bubble the combine. 2 years ago. The situation with COVID today is much different than it is like was it 2 years ago. You realize now on my UW-Madison campus, one of the most strict places about COVID in the United States, our mask mandate is expected to, or is set to expire March 12th, before the combine. And we're at one of the most strict places in the country about COVID. Everything is different now than it was even a year ago. It's not the same. I don't know. I don't know.
We don't have to dive into the politics behind this, but it's just kind of weird for an organization that's really been, they've been good at handling this COVID situation ever since it really started. Like they didn't have a delay in the season, the first, when it first came out.
And they only had to reschedule like 3 games? None this year either. Think about that. There was no huge outbreaks in any one NFL team.
I think, didn't they reschedule a couple this year? Was there like a Tuesday night game? Like one?
Oh, you're right. There was that 1 week.
I feel like it was the Raiders for some reason. Or maybe the Titans. Who was it? I don't know. But so let's just say like at most they had a couple this year. That's great compared to a lot of these other sports. You look at the Bulls, for example, that just hadn't. And here's the funny part too. NFL rosters are massive compared to the NBA. Are much bigger than MLB rosters.
Right.
And they've been seemingly the best at containing it.
I don't know. Yeah, it was the Raiders and Browns, Washington and Philly, and then Seattle and LA. So, but still, that's not even bad, dude. Like, that's not bad at all.
And I think that was all the same week, I believe.
It was.
And so you just look at it like, so they had one instance in the middle of the season where they had an outbreak. Whatever. Let's look at the teams that won. A playoff team beat a non-playoff team. Cool. A playoff
And
team beat a
also,
non-playoff team. Cool. A playoff team beats a non-playoff team. Whoop-de-doo. It didn't matter. Even if
and
a couple players
also,
missed.
think about this. The situation's also a lot different than it was in December. You know?
Yep.
Like, Omicron was just starting to be a thing then. Now it's basically burned its way through. And Omicron was a lot different than Delta even was. You know what I mean? Like, I don't. We're using the same, like, thinking when the situation is completely different. Well, the NFLPA, for their part, issued a memo to agents in support of the idea of players skipping the combine. Yeah, because agents pay for these players to be there. So,
Yeah. I wouldn't be wanting to send myself there, especially knowing that it might decrease my draft stock and how much money I would make. I don't know if I would be.
it's
Because,
no.
like, dude, okay. A lot of NFL players go into the draft. You know, you have to have confidence and you have to be knowing that you're obviously a good football player, even if it doesn't pan out in the NFL. But a lot of people have the first contract, their rookie contract, and then they're out and they never come back to the league because they didn't cut it. So these players are trying to scrap together as much money as they can going into their first contract.
Right.
And so a lot of these like non-big names that go to the combine to try and boost their draft stock, they're not going to have that opportunity this year.
No. And because the NFL just like, and you know they know it's dumb because this isn't how they ran the season.
Yeah.
Like, you know they know it's dumb. I don't know.
I
It's
don't
just,
get it.
that's irritating.
I don't get it.
It's just irritating. So,
Either way.
they're saying that the agents have objected to recent changes that have moved some drills to prime time for TV and compress the amount of time players have everything to get done while in Indy. The agents oppose the idea of a bubble that would prevent players from interacting with some of the key people charged with making sure that they're best for the combine week. That's exactly what we were saying. They're not going to have their nutritionist. They're trying to reach certain weights in time for the combine. They're not going to have it just doesn't make any sense. I don't understand that at all. Yeah, it's stupid. So I hope they skip it, and I hope the NFL loses money on it because screw that. And the guys who are good are still going to get drafted anyway. So, yeah, unless you got anything else on that. All right, so moving on, the MLB lockout continues. The first week of spring training games has now been canceled. So we're more than 2 months in the lockout. Very little progress has been made. Spring training games are officially postponed through March 5th. Yeah. As of February 22nd, so as of today, the MLB and MLB Players Association remain far apart after beginning in-person negotiations in Jupiter, Florida on Monday. With a softer deadline of February 28th to start the season on time, the two sides will continue talks at the spring training home of the St. Louis Cardinals and Miami Marlins throughout the week. So that's the latest update from today. Again, I mean, I don't know. I don't really have that much more to say on this than we already have. I think the owners are just digging in. I don't think all of the players' demands are unreasonable, especially for players near the bottom of the spectrum. And that's the thing. It's not like the players are demanding, like, it's not like the high level guys are demanding that they get paid more. They just want the
No,
lower
it's the
level
league.
players to have a minimum of security.
Well, dude, they're looking out for the entire league at that point.
Exactly.
And you look at it, the players are the product.
Right.
You know, without them, they're the driving force of the MLB. whether owners like to admit it or not. Sure, they've probably been successful in their life, and sure, they've made a lot of money, and sure, they've invested a lot of time in, you know, drafting and, just like scouting players and, doing signing deals, whatever it is, endorsements, everything. Owners have given up a lot of their time, but you got to look at it like, guys, there's so many young stars that may never get their shot in the MLB that just want to make money before they are out of the league. And I think for sure I think we're in the same boat. I almost always root for the players, especially when you just look at it. Look at the proportion of how many players versus how many owners there are, right?
Right.
I think that owners kind of got to get their thumb out of their butt and kind of look at it like, I don't know. They're pretty stingy, I guess, but you kind of have to be rich in this world. So.
Oh, right. So Andrew Miller says that there are the players' offers on the table. The league right now is refusing to counter that offer. He says Andrew Miller said nothing discussed with them should be a surprise. Since the last couple of CBAs, we've seen changes in the way the league is operated, how the markets have worked, and it's something that we have publicly been very forward about. It needs addressing. The time to do that is through collective bargaining. For example, service time manipulation has come to the forefront. The hyper efficiency of teams trying to maximize everything instead of putting the best team on the field for the fans is a problem. It's affecting a handful of players, but it's not right for them to be manipulated. There have been rebuilds in the past. The cycles were much shorter. Teams are announcing it now, telling their fans that we're not going to compete because we've all come to a realization draft picks are valuable. That's a very good point. Like they should cut that out. So for example, in 2015, the Cubs didn't bring up Chris Bryant to the majors until like the second week of the season because by that point they could bring him up and still have him on a rookie contract for an additional year. They shouldn't be allowed to do that. They should not be allowed to do that. It's teams tanking. This is becoming a problem in all sports now, dude. Tanking is becoming an issue. And I don't know how you avoid that other than making the entire draft a lottery.
They got to make it a lottery. Exactly.
Like the entire thing, though. The entire thing. Or maybe all the teams that didn't make the playoffs.
Oh, yeah. The NBA is perfect with that because you look at it.
But teams still tank in the NBA. This is based on odds still.
Well, that makes sense. But you look at it. What teams have been successful tanking in recent memory? Like the Sixers. But they haven't. What have they done?
I mean, that's fair, but they still got Joel Embiid and, well, I guess Ben Simmons, but now James Harden, technically.
So they made the playoffs a couple seasons. And so tanking is an issue. See, here's the funny thing, is that tanking is an issue in every sport. But more likely than not, I mean, you rarely the champions in each league are teams that were in the shitter the three seasons before.
I was just gonna say, you know who never tanks?
The championship winners.
The Steelers never tank. Patriots don't tank. Warriors never tanked. San Antonio never tanks.
Yeah. No, it's the bad franchises who's been the bottom of the barrel for a long time just trying to find something. It's probably just a matter of the fact that they've been bad for so long that they need to think of other ways to improve than just the standard. Whether that be get the player, get the coach, get the culture, and let it carry you on. But it's just I just don't think tanking has been very successful for teams that have been in the last couple seasons, and you can tell when teams are tanking for sure.
It's interesting. So here's what's interesting for baseball is they don't have a salary cap and they don't have a salary floor. So you look at a team like the Rays, who have a lower payroll, but have been very successful. You look at a team with the largest payroll, the Yankees. They haven't made the World Series. So it's just interesting that different models can, like the Braves don't have the highest salary cap. So different models can work in baseball. I think it would be like, and the players don't want a salary cap, and the owners don't want a salary floor. So it's going to be hard to come to a good compromise while standing firm on that issue. I don't know.
Here's my question. Do you think that just in terms of contract negotiation, that teams could make each payroll, each amount of money in brackets of like how statistically good you did in a season?
Oh, so set a salary cap.
So let's just say you hit incentives as a baseball player. You bet 300, you get set amount of money. You bet 310, you get an extra
right.
million, whatever. You understand the concept. But that would incentivize the players to play as well as they can, right? And that would incentivize the owners to that wouldn't make the owners have to put extra so and so millions of dollars in people's pockets to compete with everybody else.
Right.
And on top of that, it would make each sport more equal, whereas like the Yankees can't bid $20 million more than the Indians can per year.
Right.
And so I think that it would bring a lot of parity to like
Guardians.
That's right. The Guardians. We got to restart her. I'm just kidding. But you know what I mean? So like possibly make contracts incentivized based on like statistics and games played and like team success maybe to a lesser degree team success because that's like not super in your control as a player. But I don't know. But like just change up how contract negotiations work possibly as an option.
Right. Yeah, I hear that. I don't know. I feel like it's not that difficult of a solution. I don't know why the league is being so stubborn on this.
Dude, you know what it probably is because the MLB doesn't make crap for money anymore because they refuse to like.
They make more than the NBA, dude.
You sure about that?
You sure? Hold on, I'm Googling it right now. What was the last regular season? 2019? Before COVID?
I don't know. Probably 2019.
Yeah. In 2019, MLB made 10.7 billion. In 2019, the NBA made 8.3 billion. That was the last regular season
nationally.
Yeah. No, that's total revenue. So like 2.4 billion more.
With double the games played, though.
All right. But I mean, the NFL made more than all of them with an eighth of the games played.
Yeah,
the NFL made 15 billion.
Yeah, the NFL's different. Built different. But just like MLB is just like, I don't know, it's just not as intriguing as the other sports. You look at it like this, we say this quite a bit. There's just so many games, bro. Mm-hmm. Like the way that the season is set up doesn't really make sense. The way that contract negotiation and salary cap doesn't make any sense. The percentage that goes to the players, because that's like one of the big things is
they don't have a percentage. They don't have revenue sharing right now, which they do in the NBA. It's like they need to spend like 50% or something of the money on the players.
Yeah, and so it's just kind of like the MLB has a lot of problems, and Manfred is a moron. But dude, gotta stick with the classics, bro. You can't adapt.
Yeah.
Gotta
Baseball is a
stay
boomer
true.
sport. I still like baseball though.
I like baseball. I like the playoffs. I don't like about anything else.
Yeah. All right.
The home run derby, though, that might be the coolest all-star like event out of any sport, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Especially the one where Kyle Schwarber doesn't win,
Oh,
loses to
oh.
is it Vladdy? Is that who? Is that who
No, it
took it?
was to Bryce Harper. It was in um it was in the National Stadium.
Oh, never mind. That was Jock Peterson and Vladdy. That's right.
Yeah. All right. Moving on. We are going to do our first real Formula One topic of the season. So now most of the 2022 cars and liveries have been released. Um,
Red Bulls
I'm-
is the best.
Red Bulls is the exact same as it was. Hold on. So I'm gonna
Red
put this.
Bulls
If you're
is
watching
the
on
best.
YouTube, I'm gonna have pictures of the cars up on the screen. Um, so we'll start off with my favorite
Your
team,
favorite McLaren.
McLaren. Um, okay. So my initial thoughts, I like the livery. I think maybe it has too much black on it. So here's like picture of it. You can't really see the whole thing. I really like the light blue. I like the darker shade of orange or papaya, as they say on it. I like the
Yeah.
lighter blue. I think it looks good. I think it looks clean. I think it's a little bit better than last year. It's not everybody's favorite. People have had some mixed feelings on it. I don't know. I personally really like it. As
Dude,
for
I think McLaren probably, in my opinion, has the best color scheme. Just the mix of bright and dark, as well as like the fact that blue and orange are so opposite that they contrast each other very well, in my opinion. And on top of that, um, they don't specifically choose the orange or blue like over. They don't overuse it anywhere. I'm a big
right.
fan of this as well.
Okay. So the McLaren for the actual as for the actual car and the arrow, McLaren took an interesting approach this year. So let me see quick if I can find a better like top image of it. I like the approach, and there's been a lot of different approaches by the teams this year because this is the first year of the regulation changes. So the cars are all brand new this year. I really so what McLaren did is they used a concept that heavily relies, of course, as many of the teams do, on the floor downforce. So they're really using the floor downforce, ground effect downforce to their advantage as much as they can, which is what they're going to have to do this year because the front wings and rear wings are slightly more limited this year. Here, so here is some more images of the car. Here's a oh, sorry, here's a front image of the car. Here's the side shot. And let me see. I want a top view. Here's the top view of it. So look, this black part right here is the floor area. And they made their side pods really bold at the front and then cut them back really quick so that the air funnels back to the diffuser.
Okay.
And I think that was smart. So what they
It keeps the
right,
back end
exactly.
down.
Right. So they have undercuts underneath the side pods, as you can see in this image. So basically, the idea is that the air travels through this area to the underwing and then creates downforce here as well as at the back. That is very different from what the Aston Martin did. So this is almost the exact opposite of the McLaren. The Aston Martin took this in a totally different direction. So as you can see here, they utilized big side pods the entire way and had these vents here. Now, what the vents do, they do something pretty interesting. So the vents here are going to be funneling out hot air. That what the goal of this car is to push that hot air and air in general towards the rear wing here to generate downforce. Downforce. They as well utilized big undercuts to also basically get the same effect of what the McLaren did, but in a very different style. Whereas the McLaren air will rush off the top here and be focused down to the back of the car. They utilized undercuts in these vents to basically do the same effect, but in a different way. Another thing the Aston Martin did that's interesting is, so look at how high up this front wing is compared to this was last year's car where that's extremely low. So the goal of this is to get more air underneath the front wing, which typically you wouldn't want, right? You would want more air going over the front wing,
That's
like
going
to
to
have the
increase their top speed.
No, so what this does is they like loaded the pressure onto the sides of the wings. So the sides of the wings are going to be doing most of the lifting on creating downforce. So what having it higher up near the nose does is it allows more air to flow underneath the car and to the undercuts they created here to create downforce. That's kind of the opposite of what the McLaren did. The McLaren more loaded it on the front and have their sides more open. So more air will flow over the sides here and to their side pods and be funneled to the back. So they're essentially doing the same thing. They just took two very different approaches to it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. So I also really like the Aston Martin livery this year. They got rid of BWT as a main sponsor. So instead of the pink, they have this light green. I think it looks good. I don't know. Now I don't know which strategy will work out better, but they're both interesting and like they're both trying to do the same thing through different methods.
Yeah, to me, that's interesting, especially when you look at like the vent pockets. I feel like there's a lot more collisions and friction, going along the car from the wind. So I would be
Yeah.
surprised if McLaren doesn't, have a little bit more success, especially you look at it just in the past. I mean, their design teams have been better as of recent anyhow. So I'm
Right.
gonna say McLaren probably is ahead with these, but I don't
Right.
know. That's weird to me.
Another interesting thing about the McLaren, and I want to get this right, I think they used whole rod suspension in the front, which is a big differentiation from what they did last year and what teams have done in the past. So hold on, I just want to verify this. Make sure I'm not saying the wrong thing. So yeah. So McLaren's going with a pull rod front suspension and a push rod rear suspension. Now, part of that is they said it's for aerodynamic purposes. I don't know if I really buy into that. I think it's more of the mechanical advantage so that it more operates better with their like front wing and with the suspension in general and the larger tires because there's 18-inch tires this year, which is much bigger than they've been in recent years. So I think they get more of a mechanical advantage from the suspension by using pull rod. What's interesting is they use a push rod in the back. I don't really see the advantage to this, other than it gives them more operating space, like in the back, and allows them to make the back of their car slimmer, which is what they did with the big side pods and the slimmer rear. So I think that's why they went with push rod in the back. But most of the teams, I think every team that's released so far has been opposite of this. So they either got it really right or really wrong. But we'll see. Um, Next, another car that was recently released, the Alpine. So BWT is now a title sponsor for them instead of Aston Martin, which is why they have the pink on it this year. I don't love the look. I don't
No,
love it.
I was just
They
thinking the same thing. That's probably my least favorite.
they also
It's
have
probably my
here.
least
So
favorite update.
let me find the livery they're gonna be running for the first two races is all pink. I don't love that. Hold on, I don't think it's on here. Um, it's an all pink livery for the first two races. This one just came out, so I haven't had a ton of time to analyze how I think their car is going to perform. This is what the first two races livery is going to look like. So a lot more pink. Because
I think that
BWT
one honestly looks better.
BWT
Genuinely
is their
think that
title
one looks
sponsor,
better.
so it looks a lot like the Racing Point from a couple years ago, or the Force India. I don't know. This Alpine's blue, but they're getting a lot of money from BWT, so they utilized kind of. Like I said, I haven't had a ton of time to analyze like how I think this works, but from what it looks like initially, you can see they have the undercuts here too, going back, and they've kind of met in the middle between McLaren and the Aston Martin, where their side pods aren't as wide in any given area, and they're slimmer towards the back. They've also utilized the vents to try to direct airflow towards the rear wing. Um, I don't know. It could work. Problem with Alpine though is they're using the Renault engine because they're also like they used to be Renault, and the Renault engine is the worst out of all of them. I mean, there's a reason no other cars use the Renault engine. So I don't know. I think Alpine might struggle this year, unfortunately, because I like Fernando Alonso, but I think they might struggle. Uh, yeah. So yeah, I don't really like that look.
No. Yeah, that's probably my least favorite. I agree with that one.
Okay. Next is the Haas. I don't know how like this is the same livery they ran last year.
Yeah.
Um, it's fine. I think they'll be better this year than they were last year. I mean, they certainly can't be worse. They were horrible last year. They've utilized a similar. I don't even know what they're doing. They're like in terms of aero, it's Haas, dude. They have some things that are similar. That's not it. So they have like kind of similar to the McLaren, but these side pods are way more pronounced up here, and they taper differently. Like I think they're utilizing a similar concept, but they also utilize a lot of parts from Ferrari. Their vents up front are weird. I don't get that. I don't feel like they have enough like they're gonna have enough cool air intake to me. But then they also have this one too, and this looks a lot different. This was the one that was on track. So I don't think what they officially released is what they're gonna be running. It's like look at this. Look at how
Yeah, you
different that
wanna
looks.
you wanna look on? Do you have a side view?
Yeah.
I can't really tell either. But
Also, this front wing looks a lot different, doesn't it?
yeah, the height on that seems a lot more substantial.
This is completely different. No, but so here's what if this is their actual one, this doesn't make any sense because they're look at the way they're and it's lower to the
Well,
ground, so they're not gonna have as much airflow anywhere. Like as in the Aston Martin
no,
and
they're not.
McLaren. I don't
Well, on
get that.
top of that, like those are set very very horizontal as well. Like there's not really any height to the angle of the front of the vehicle either. And so on top of it being low, it's also very just like thin overall, I think.
This looks like the
Um
Aston Martin.
hmm.
I don't know what's going on here. That's another interesting thing. So depending on like the rank the cars are going to use. Anyway, we're running out of time here, so we need to keep going. But the next car, the Mercedes, I think it looks fantastic. Um, hold on, let me pull up an image of this. I really like the fact that they went back to silver
No,
over
yeah, I was
black.
gonna say I almost always like lean to black. I don't know why. I just like the especially like night racing. I think black looks super sick.
Huh.
But I'm kind of digging the transition back to a lighter color.
I think the silver looks really good. What's interesting is, and I don't know how representative this is going to be of the actual Mercedes. Like they're probably holding in quite a bit. However, they did run it in testing, so it might be similar to what they're actually going to run. They That's not the right one. Oh, here. They're utilizing a very similar concept. That's not it either. They're utilizing a similar concept, though, to McLaren, is what it appears, with the wider front pods going back to the smaller side pods. My inclination is that, see here, you can see it. This looks very similar to the McLaren. Yeah, I think they utilized similar concepts. Like again, they have the undercuts here, so not a whole ton of repeat to say about this because it does look pretty similar to the McLaren.
One thing I will
I
also note is that the initial spot where the wind is going to hit on the side of the vehicle on the McLaren is a lot sharper, it seems, as a lot of the other
right,
constructors, where there's almost bulges out in a roundish like a roundish shape going around. So
right,
I kind of agree with the sharp aspect because with having to have the wind run around an extra,
right,
be it 2 inches, whatever it is,
right.
that could be a big difference.
What I think is, I think they now I'm no aerodynamicist, but I think they nailed this front wing. I think they nailed this because they've maximized their floor ground force by allowing this big space right here and by making the front part of the wing not carry as much as the load.
Yeah.
And then they have it really loaded on the outsides, which I really like. What I don't understand, what I think I like about the McLaren a little bit better and the Aston Martin is they drop the front element of the wing to collect downforce there, whereas the Mercedes doesn't. I think, look at, you can see the Mercedes is a lot lower to the ground, similar to the McLaren, whereas the Aston Martin was rode a lot higher up. I personally like the way Mercedes did it.
Yeah, overall nice design. Um,
Yeah,
the weight
I
on the
think
outside definitely uh, definitely seems to be kind of the
right.
reoccurring for the top competitors, I should say. That kind of seems to be the theme here, is weight on the outsides.
So I'm gonna touch on these other quick. Williams looks cool. It's very smooth. Um, I don't know. I want to get to Ferrari here, so we're just gonna touch on these others quickly. I don't know. It looks smooth. It's really high up like the Aston. They utilize the wide side pods, but everything on this one's so much smoother. I don't know. It'll be interesting. And I don't really think they angle air towards the rear wing very well. So that'll be interesting. I think the Williams looks very good though. The AlphaTauri looks good. This is pretty basic. I don't think Red Bull or AlphaTauri really showed much. So there's like this is just the stock car. Like Red Bull didn't show anything.
Right.
And AlphaTauri similarly because the AlphaTauri is going to be similar to the Red Bull. They showed a little bit more. They have these square intakes here. But I want to get to Ferrari in the last 3 minutes here quick because they did something really interesting that I really don't. I thought at first it worked really well. Now I'm not really sure it works. Hold on here. I'm not really sure it works out all that well. So they have these weird like bathtub things on the side. Like this literally caves in here. I don't get that at all. Like look at this. It caves in here. And another thing they did is they cut themselves off because they cut off their undercuts right here. So unlike the Aston Martin and the McLaren, where this undercut goes the whole way, they had to cut this off because they had to make these side pods, which I get the goal of them is to funnel air towards the rear wing, but I feel like you could have done that a lot more effectively without making these things indented. I don't get that at all. That doesn't even make any sense. I just really don't think Ferrari got it right. Anyway, quick 10 seconds. Do you have anything else to say about that?
Go Haas.
Yeah. All right. So, we're gonna quick go over the rest of the teams on YouTube, but if you're listening on iTunes or Spotify, make sure to leave us a rating and subscribe. We'll see you next time. So I want a quick wrap up here if you're watching on YouTube with the Ferrari. Because I don't. You see what I'm talking about here?
Yeah, I don't think they really have any good shots of it, to be honest. I can't really tell from. Hang on
I'll
here.
find some better ones. 'Cause I know they had some really good ones on Instagram. Let me find some better. Because I just like when I was first looking at it, I totally get what they're trying to do. And I zoom in on this. No, it's not. Um, I I understand what they're trying to do. I just don't think in practice it's very effective. Critical. No, I don't know. Like I said, I'm not an aerodynamicist, so I'm not really one to comment too extensively here. But it just seems like it defeats the purpose because I feel like you're losing a lot of your ground force from the rear and you're trying to make it up with the you're trying to make it up with the rear wing, but the whole point of these cars is that the rear wing isn't as effective. That's the whole point because they're trying to increase or decrease the ability to create dirty air. See, here you can see it a little bit better. See how it indents right there? I don't think
Right.
they're going to get good airflow into that. And yeah, they're going to be producing airflow out of those vents here and directing it towards the rear wing, but that's going to be really hot air. So it's going to be a lot less dense. I don't like it. Anyway, um, yeah, I think that pretty much wraps it up for this week. We will be back here next week again. Subscribe on YouTube, leave a like, check us out on Instagram and TikTok. And see you on Thursday.